Welcome to Dynamics Unplugged. Today we are talking about the Dynamics 365 Guidance Documentation resource page. If you are a follower of the Top of the Mind series with Krupke and Rachel Profit, they recently talked about this. This documentation is really important. If you are a consultant learning Dynamics 365 for the first time, or you're somebody who has experience implementing Dynamics 365 but needs to learn it from a different context, needs to understand business processes more than just what buttons to push. Historically, if you look at MS Learn or Microsoft Docs, there has been a lot of material out there that has acted as manuals. Go to this module, open this form, click New, enter this value, check this box. It doesn't tell you why you're doing those things. It doesn't give you a context of what configurations are relevant for your implementation, how they're relevant and relate to the business processes and the business requirements that a company actually has. So this documentation gives a much broader and better framework for understanding the context of different solutions. And you can see at the top, there are different pages. It's essentially one large landing form for all of Microsoft Learning. So under Get Started, there's guidance on this documentation, a glossary of terms and the business processes that are used, Microsoft Dynamics roles and why they're relevant, other training pages and materials, and an introduction to the Success by Design framework. Success by Design here is also listed under this concept tile. That is the same framework that Microsoft Fast Track's architect use during Fast Track implementation projects, and that documentation really helps guide projects. But what I want to focus on today is actually this one section, which is the end-to-end business processes, taking the point of view of either a functional consultant or a business analyst or an end user of a company. What are the out-of-the-box business processes that can be supported and what scenarios they cover, what functionality relates to them, and then get to those manuals of click this button and enter this value. The first page in the end-to-end business processes is a listing of what end-to-end scenarios are covered. These are very common scenarios. You might see these in APQC or other frameworks: forecast to plan, inventory to deliver, order to cash, plan to produce, procure to pay, product and service lifecycle management, prospect to quote, and record to report. There are other sections here as well. Those were ones just with products. With services, you might have case to resolution or service to cash. With HR, hire to retire. End-to-end scenarios with finance, acquire to dispose, and project to profit. If you already have experience with Dynamics 365, you might already get the sense of where certain modules or functionality fit into these end-to-end scenarios. However, if you don't, or you want a better understanding, that's when you can click into these menus and these pages and see how they relate. Since many of you know me from a background or from this page using many master planning topics, let's start actually with forecast to plan as an example of this. The Dynamics 365 guidance and end-to-end business process pages start off with the product this applies to. So think licensing or think what D365 solution. We're not talking about CE or a CRM tool. We're talking about D365 Commerce, D365 Finance and Supply Chain. There might be HR, Project Operations, D365 Sales, SCM, Microsoft Supply Chain Center. All the topics here will relate to the product that these business processes are being introduced here. I will focus obviously really on the finance and supply chain side. All of these articles will introduce you to that end-to-end process, how they align with the Microsoft business solutions and applications. Here we get an overview. For forecast to plan, what does that term actually mean? It says it typically describes a collection of business processes that an organization implements to estimate demand and determine how much supply is required to meet those demands. So a generic broad statement. This is not specifically about Dynamics 365. What they are giving you is an understanding of the actual business practices that are happening. And then they're going to relate it to the solutions that we offer in the implementation stack. Talks about the business process where it takes part in an organization. They're buying and selling products and services. The upstream and downstream relationships that occur. Who's this going to affect? It might affect your customer, it might affect your procurement department, and we'll get to that later under the impact of the organization when we talk about stakeholders. But this first section here is really describing where the forecast to plan process fits in an organization and what types of organizations. Your design and decisions made about that process, who they're going to impact, if you need to consider integrations or data that are related to those. And then supporting and documenting that business process. The impact section, we're going to have one for all of these, whether it's forecast to plan, acquire to dispose, or any of the other end-to-end processes I mentioned. We're going to start with an initial priority, maybe factorization of the impact. What is it doing? Who's it impacting? This is going to affect your expected demand and supply when we're talking about forecast to plan. This allows you to standardize and automate replenishment of inventory. It can support your process by being flexible for supply chain disruption. Then it gets into the stakeholders. Who are the important people in the forecast to plan process? Planning stakeholders, chief operating officers, operations managers, planning managers, procurement stakeholders, whether they're buyers or directors, purchasing agents, sales stakeholders, if we're putting in sales forecasts for customers, production stakeholders, your production managers and schedulers, and your inventory stakeholders, who's managing the inventory in the warehouse and planning for its arrival. The benefits of having this process. What are the things that can make our business more efficient or reduce costs, and how? Forecast to plan will prevent product stockouts. And then it gets into some of the tools in D365 that can help with that and why. The demand forecasting tool in supply chain management, the inventory management module in D365 supply chain management, supply chain visibility, which is a tool as part of the Microsoft Supply Chain Center, a cloud tool that sits outside of Dynamics and can bring in other sources of data as well. Automated replenishment, both in D365 Commerce and D365 SCM, and collaboration and communication, whether that's Microsoft 365, Microsoft Teams, or Dynamics 365 vendor collaboration portals and tools that you can implement. And then additionally, other benefits of using this process. So these articles really give you a good framework with the stakeholders and the impacts and the benefits of these types of processes. And then they summarize with a next step and related resources. So this is where it will then link to other pieces, whether you want to request a demo, whether you want to actually go into the overview, the traditional learning resources in Microsoft Learn. Other resources, tech talks, master planning in D365 supply chain management, that would take you to the module content and get to some of those manuals and labs that you have the ability to use and help you. And then other recommended content, so links to related end-to-end scenarios or business process areas like plan to produce, inventory deliver, procure to pay, and the forecast to plan business process area overview. That's just a sample using forecast to plan. This same structure is for all of the end-to-end scenarios that I listed earlier. They also have documentation on security compliance, reference architectures, the fast track program, and product documentation. Many of this, or most of this, can be downloadable into PDF form as well. If I go back to that main page, that's the overview of the business processes in Dynamics 365, the landing page that I use to get to the end-to-end business processes. Even earlier than that, the very first page is the guidance documentation with other resources. So today we really just focused on that one section of end-to-end business processes that are very important for both partners and customers alike. you can explore the other areas that will help you in your implementation and business transformation journeys here as well.